The relationship between Derek and Alice commenced as a passionate romance, one that appeared almost too extraordinary to be real. Their lives unfolded like a flawless dream, beginning with a serendipitous meeting that sparked an immediate connection and a profound bond that many individuals spend their entire lives seeking. Derek, a 30-year-old software engineer known for his sharp intellect and composed nature, had dedicated years to advancing his career. Love had always seemed out of reach for him, a notion more fitting for fairy tales than his own existence until Alice entered his life unexpectedly. Alice was a remarkable individual, distinct from anyone Derek had encountered before. She possessed beauty, confidence, and intelligence, coupled with a wit that left him in admiration. From their first meeting, he was captivated by her. She was a tall, elegant woman with long, flowing dark hair and bright, expressive eyes. They discovered shared interests, a mutual sense of humor, and a passion for adventure, which led them to travel together almost immediately after they began dating. Their connection felt natural, and within 6 months, Derek found himself on one knee, proposing to Alice atop a mountain during one of their hiking excursions. She accepted with a radiant smile, and their wedding, a modest yet elegant celebration, soon followed, attended by close family and friends. It was everything Derek had envisioned: the vows, the first dance, and the promises of a lifetime together. He was blissfully in love, convinced he had found the one person with whom he could genuinely share his life. However, beneath the surface of their seemingly idyllic relationship, complexities lingered. A secret had long been concealed by Alice from Derek, one that, if uncovered, would irrevocably alter their relationship. The initial weeks of their marriage were filled with joy. Derek and Alice had settled into a quaint suburban residence just outside the city. Although modest in size, the home was warm and inviting, providing ample room for the couple to envision starting a family in the future. Derek cherished returning home from work to find Alice in the kitchen, preparing dinner, her gentle laughter resonating in the air as they shared stories about their day. Their evenings were often spent snuggled on the couch, watching films or contemplating their future together. Derek felt an overwhelming sense of happiness. However, as time progressed, Derek began to observe subtle shifts in Alice's demeanor. At times, she appeared more withdrawn, as if burdened by an unspoken concern. There were instances when she would retreat into her thoughts, her laughter diminishing and her expression becoming serious. Whenever Derek inquired about her well-being, she would dismiss his concerns, assuring him that all was well, yet her reassurances did little to alleviate his mounting worry. Derek adored Alice deeply, but he could not shake the impression that she was harboring a secret. He attempted to dismiss these thoughts, reminding himself that every marriage experiences its challenges, especially in the early months as they adjusted to their new life together and learned to navigate the intricacies of cohabitation and future planning. Nevertheless, the persistent feeling that something was amiss lingered in his mind. It was on a rainy afternoon that Derek's world would be irrevocably changed. Derek returned home from work earlier than usual, intending to surprise Alice with flowers for a romantic evening. As he entered the house, he noticed an unusual silence. Calling out her name yielded no response, leading him to assume she was out running errands. He proceeded upstairs to their bedroom, where he found Alice's laptop open on the bed. A surge of curiosity overcame him. Alice had always been very protective of her personal devices, never leaving them unlocked or unattended. After a brief moment of hesitation, he sat on the bed and looked at the screen. What he discovered caused his heart to race. There, displayed before him, was an email exchange between Alice and a close friend he had never met. The messages were lengthy and profoundly personal, filled with sentiments he had never heard from Alice. Then he found it the revelation that would alter everything. In one of the messages, Alice had shared with her friend her past. She had been born male and had transitioned years before their meeting. The conversation revealed her anxieties about Derek discovering this truth and her intentions to eventually disclose it, though the right moment had never presented itself. Derek stared at the screen, his mind in turmoil. He struggled to comprehend the information before him, feeling as though the ground had been pulled from beneath him, leaving him in a state of disbelief. How could this be true? How could Alice have concealed such a significant aspect of her life? Anger surged within him, anger at the deception, anger at the lies, but beneath that anger lay a deeper turmoil. A profound sense of betrayal enveloped Derek. He had always taken pride in his open-mindedness and acceptance, but this situation was different. It was deeply personal. This was his wife, the woman he had pledged to share his life with, and she had concealed something so essential about herself. Derek felt as if the foundation of their marriage had been constructed on falsehoods. That evening, when Alice returned home, Derek was already in the living room, his thoughts racing and his emotions a tumultuous blend of confusion, hurt, and anger. He had remained silent since her arrival, yet the tension in the room was unmistakable. Alice quickly sensed that something was amiss. She set down her bag and approached him with caution. "Derek, is everything okay?" she inquired. Initially, he did not respond. Rising from the couch, he clenched his fists at his sides. When he finally spoke, his voice was strained and low. "I know." Alice's complexion drained of color. "What do you mean, you know?" "I know everything," Derek replied, his voice escalating. "I saw the emails, Alice. I know about your past. Why didn't you tell me?" Tears welled in Alice's eyes as the gravity of the situation dawned on her. She attempted to reach out to him, but Derek recoiled, his anger surging. "How could you lie to me like this?" he shouted. "How could you keep something so significant from me? I thought I knew you." "I wanted to tell you," Alice said, her voice quivering. "I just didn't know how. I was scared, Derek. I was scared you wouldn't love me if you knew the truth." Derek shook his head, his mind a storm of conflicting feelings. "How could you marry me without revealing this? How could you allow me to fall in love with you?" Love with the knowledge that you were concealing this from me caused tears to flow down Alice's cheeks. "I never intended to hurt you. I love you, Derek. I love you more than anything," she pleaded, but Derek was unable to hear her. His mind was consumed by feelings of betrayal and deception that had tainted their relationship. He stormed out of the house, leaving Alice alone in the living room, her heart breaking as she watched him walk away. In the days that followed, Derek did not return home. He could not face Alice or bear the thought of looking her in the eyes after uncovering the truth. Instead, he sought refuge with a friend, drowning his sorrows in alcohol and sleepless nights. His thoughts were overwhelmed by the revelation, plagued by questions that haunted him relentlessly. Had their entire relationship been a fabrication? Did Alice ever truly love him, or had she merely used him to conceal her secret? His thoughts spiraled into darkness, blurring the lines between love and hate. Meanwhile, Alice remained in their home, devastated by the aftermath of their confrontation. She had always understood the risks of not disclosing the truth to Derek sooner, but she never anticipated it would culminate in such a way. Her love for him was profound, yet it now felt distorted and unrecognizable. Alice attempted to reach out to Derek, calling and texting in hopes of resolving their issues, but her messages went unanswered. She recognized that Derek needed time, yet she feared he might never return. A week later, Derek finally came back home, appearing disheveled with bloodshot eyes, a testament to the days spent in despair. Over the past few days, he had been grappling with his emotions, attempting to comprehend the turmoil that had unfolded. However, as he stepped through the front door, he came to the realization that there were no straightforward solutions. Alice was seated at the kitchen table upon his arrival, her complexion was pale and drawn. She lifted her gaze to meet his, her eyes reflecting a blend of hope and trepidation. "Derek," she whispered, her voice barely above a murmur, "I'm so sorry." Derek stood in the doorway, his hands trembling at his sides. He felt an overwhelming urge to scream, to express the profound pain he was enduring, yet all he could do was gaze at her, the woman he had once loved so deeply, while feeling the heavy burden of betrayal that lay between them. "I don't know if I can forgive you," he finally managed to say, his voice raw with emotion. "I don't know if I can ever view you the same way again." Alice's heart shattered at his words, yet she understood that he was justified in his feelings. She had deceived him, concealing a part of herself out of fear of losing him, but ultimately, her silence had led to the very outcome she had sought to prevent. "Please," Alice implored, her voice quivering, "just give me a chance to rectify this. I love you, Derek. I've always loved you." Derek's expression hardened. "I don't even know who you are anymore." With that, he turned and exited the door, leaving Alice in solitude once more. As days turned into weeks, the chasm between Derek and Alice only widened. Derek had vacated their home, refusing to engage with Alice or acknowledge her attempts to reach out. He was engulfed by his anger and sorrow, unable to envision a path forward from the betrayal he had endured. Meanwhile, Alice was left utterly devastated. The dissolution of her marriage had always led her to believe that revealing her past to Derek would be a challenging endeavor. However, she never anticipated that it would culminate in such a tragic manner. She had cherished him deeply, yet that affection now appeared tainted by the deceptions and secrets she had harbored. It was late one night when Derek finally returned, inebriated and ready to engage in a fierce argument with Alice. As their confrontation escalated, Derek lost his composure. In a moment of blind rage, his trembling hands reached for Alice, seizing her in a fit of fury. He had no intention of causing her harm, nor did he foresee the extent to which the situation would spiral out of control. Before he realized it, Alice lay on the floor, her body still and unresponsive. The room was enveloped in a chilling silence, broken only by Derek's labored breathing as he stood over her, grappling with the gravity of his actions. He knelt beside her, shaking her and calling her name, but she remained silent. Panic engulfed him as the reality of the situation dawned on him. "Oh God," Derek whispered, his voice barely above a murmur, "what have I done?" In a state of shock, he stumbled out of the house, his mind racing with a tumult of fear, guilt, and disbelief. He had never intended for this to occur, he had never meant to inflict pain upon her. He fled the scene, desperately hoping to escape the harsh truth of his actions. Later that evening, Alice's lifeless body was discovered after a concerned neighbor, alerted by the disturbance, contacted the authorities. Investigators arrived to find Alice on the floor of their home, with indications of a struggle present, yet no immediate answers. As the investigation progressed, it became evident that Derek was the primary suspect, especially since he was nowhere to be found. The police uncovered emails on Alice's laptop that disclosed a secret she had concealed from her husband. The circumstances began to align: the intense argument, Derek's abrupt disappearance, and the tragic outcome that followed. For several days, Derek evaded capture, grappling with the weight of his actions. However, the burden of guilt became unbearable, leading him to realize that he could not escape indefinitely. Ultimately, he surrendered to the authorities, entering a police station with a heavy heart, prepared to confront the repercussions of his deeds. The trial attracted significant media attention, captivating the nation with the narrative of a newlywed husband confronting his wife's transgender identity and the ensuing tragedy. Both families of Derek and Alice found themselves in the public eye, their private suffering exposed for all to witness. Derek's defense team contended that he had acted impulsively, overwhelmed by uncontrollable emotions. They portrayed him as a man who had been misled, whose life had been upended by a revelation that destroyed the foundation of his marriage. Conversely, the prosecution maintained that Derek's actions were indefensible, asserting that no level of emotional distress could excuse the taking of another's life. They presented evidence of the violent confrontation, emphasizing that Derek had abandoned Alice, fleeing the scene instead of seeking assistance. The proceedings were lengthy and arduous, with both parties offering deeply emotional testimonies. Derek's family described him as a loving and kind individual, grappling to reconcile this image with that of the man who had taken his wife's life. Conversely, Alice's family, devastated by her untimely death, expressed the profound pain and loss they experienced, mourning a daughter whose life was tragically cut short by someone who professed to love her. Ultimately, Derek was convicted of manslaughter, with the jury concluding that although he had not intended to kill Alice, his actions were reckless and violent. He received a prison sentence that felt simultaneously inadequate and excessive for a man who had succumbed to a fleeting loss of control. In the aftermath of the trial, both families were left in ruins. Derek's family found it difficult to accept the reality of his actions. His parents, who had always viewed him as a gentle and caring person, were heartbroken to confront the truth that their son was responsible for his wife's death. Their visits to him in prison were marked by strained conversations, the gravity of the situation casting a heavy shadow over their interactions. In stark contrast, Alice's family was engulfed in grief, having lost their daughter in an unimaginably horrific manner. They grappled with overwhelming feelings of anger and sorrow, their hearts shattered by the loss of a woman who had triumphed over numerous challenges in her life, only to be taken from them so abruptly. In the wake of this tragedy, both families were left to navigate the remnants of their fractured lives, while the media swiftly moved on to the next headline, leaving those affected to endure their enduring pain. Derek now found himself confined behind bars, spending his days in contemplation of the choices he had made and the life he had irrevocably altered in a single moment of tragic rage. The narrative of Derek and Alice encapsulates themes of love, betrayal, and the dire repercussions of secrets harbored for too long. It serves as a poignant reminder of the fragility of relationships, illustrating how swiftly love can transform into anger and how decisions made in moments of intense emotion can yield profound consequences. For Derek, the repercussions of his actions were immeasurable. He lost not only his wife and freedom, but also the future he had envisioned for himself. More significantly, he lost a part of his identity, as the man he once was supplanted by the individual who had taken another's life in a moment of blind fury. For Alice, the cost was even more profound. She had navigated her life with courage, embracing her true self despite numerous challenges. Ultimately, it was her love for Derek and the fear of losing him that led to her tragic demise. In the wake of the tragedy, both families were left to grapple with their grief, their loss, and the painful question of how circumstances might have differed had the truth been revealed sooner. For those acquainted with Derek and Alice, their story became a cautionary tale about the dangers of secrets, the necessity of honesty, and the destructive power of anger. As the years passed, the sharpness of the tragedy dulled somewhat, yet the scars endured for those affected. Derek, now serving a sentence for manslaughter, spent his time reflecting on the life that could have been. His once promising future had been irrevocably changed by a fleeting moment of uncontrolled rage. He sought to find meaning during his incarceration, yet the burden of his guilt was inescapable. In prison, Derek engaged in counseling, striving to comprehend the emotions that had propelled him to such a catastrophic act. It was within these sessions that he began to confront his insecurities, fears, and the toxic masculinity that had contributed to his inability to cope with Alice's secret. He spoke candidly of his love for her and the profound impact of their shared experiences. Alice's family, though irrevocably shattered by her passing, found comfort in commemorating her legacy. They established a foundation in her honor aimed at supporting LGBTQ+ individuals by providing education and resources to promote understanding and acceptance. Their hope was that by sharing Alice's narrative, others might be spared the heartbreak and violence that had taken her life. Similarly, Derek's family grappled with their sorrow, visiting him frequently. Although their discussions were often fraught with pain, they remained steadfast in their support, attempting to reconcile the son they had nurtured with the man who had committed such a grievous act. They too struggled to comprehend the tragedy, holding on to the hope that Derek's eventual release might bring some form of redemption. While the media had largely moved on, the reverberations of Derek and Alice's story continued to serve as a poignant reminder of the intricate nature of identity, love, and acceptance. The lessons derived from their brief marriage emerged as a cautionary tale, underscoring the significance of honesty, communication, and empathy in relationships. The narrative concluded with a contemplation of the broader issues illuminated by their experiences, highlighting how secrets, even those born from fear, can dismantle the very essence of love. Experts contributed insights on the necessity of education and understanding, advocating for the creation of environments where individuals can live authentically without the threat of judgment or rejection. If I had known then what I know now, things would have been different. I would have loved Alice for who she truly was, but now it's too late, Derek reflected from his prison cell, filled with remorse. The lesson conveyed was unequivocal: love can only flourish in an environment of honesty, and the burden of secrets may prove to be more than anyone is prepared to bear. As time progressed, the recollection of Derek and Alice's love story gradually receded into obscurity, becoming a faint memory of a tragedy that had briefly captured public interest. However, for those left in the aftermath, the anguish of that day persisted as a wound that would never completely mend. This concludes another episode of Shadowed Secrets, where we delve into the most profound recesses of the human psyche and the crimes that astonish the world. We encourage you to subscribe and activate the notification bell to remain informed about our latest episodes. Until we meet again, stay safe and cherish your loved ones.